Despina. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. Thanks for coming on the podcast. I've been speaking to some of the boys and they've got some really good things to say about you. They reckon you're a quality operator. So,
That's kind of them.
So yeah, I thought we'd just sit down and get to know you a bit. Obviously, your background's accounting. So do you want to give a bit of an intro, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so Despina, own LC Accountants. So I've been accounting for 14 years. I built up Bumblebee chocolates. Mm-hmm. So have been running and doing the thing of business for the last 10 years. And yeah, my specialty and passion lies in small business and, making business owners more money.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Accounting's like one of those things, hey, it's like a bit mysterious, hey? Like when I first started a business, I was like, accounting it seems quite straightforward, but there's so many things that you need to be aware of, especially as your business grows as well, So having like a really good accountant is like almost having a superhero on your team, eh?
100%.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is with accounting, so when you do the degree, there's so many other subcategories of accounting. So you can be management accountant, you can be a financial accountant, you can be a taxation accountant. And so it's like, what does that even mean? So as a accountant as a whole, it doesn't really... you're not really able to, you have to really define what it is that you do. And as a taxation accountant, because we're dealing a lot with small businesses and also individuals who might have lots of rental properties, lots of shares, you tend to start, like that's where I started to navigate. I was like, I started running my business like as in a bumblebee. And I remember when that happened, I actually my little backstory is I actually never wanted to be an accountant. I wanted to be a musician. Okay. So I was studying to be a musician, and now somehow I ended up with an accounting degree.
A musician, like an artist type person, going into numbers. Don't really see that very often, eh?
Apparently it uses the same side of the brain.
Really?
Yeah. So music actually has formulas. And it makes sense. So certain melodies are formulas, and so
actually Nathan's a bit artistic-y like that, and he's quite I wouldn't say like OCD, but he's very disciplined around stuff, stuff has to be right, good attention to detail. So it's probably maybe similar.
Maybe. But as the artsy side of things, I didn't really think that I was going to enjoy accounting. So when I started accounting, I actually wasn't enjoying it because it just seemed really dull and boring. And that was, I guess, what a lot of people see you as, like a dull, boring kind of individual. All you do is numbers and spreadsheets. And then I started Bumblebee, and that was when I realized how important it was. And I was like, wow, my skill of being an accountant actually makes me a better business owner. So
Bumblebee chocolates, did you say?
Yeah.
So how did that come about? Or
my dad went through a bit of a midlife crisis and found joy in making chocolates.
Okay.
And so because of that, he decided that he wanted to just open up a cafe and start selling his chocolates. And I didn't want that to fall flat. And so I stepped in. 23-year-old D was like, no, I can do this. Yeah. So I stepped in and I started to basically operate it as a cafe.
Yeah.
I tried everything. I was like, I don't know what's going to work. We were in Stewart Park, which, a little bit of it was a hard area because you're not getting the traffic the way you do with the city. So having a cafe when you don't have foot traffic, very, very difficult in terms of revenue. And I remember a trip to Melbourne, and I was standing in Haigs, and I said I turned around to my sister and I was like, this is not Bumblebee needs to be like this. Yeah. This is what it should have always been. I was like, we tried the cafe. I know Dad really wanted the cafe. So I got back and I changed everything around. And I was like, we're going to become a chocolate shop. So we flipped it. And that process did take a while, but I think the skill set of that accounting, understanding the numbers, understanding what I could pull from, meant that I was able to execute things a lot quicker than I think someone else might. They wouldn't have been able to maybe see the opportunity of what they needed to do. So I actually began that love of business. So now I think of myself as a business owner first, then an accountant, because I know how to leverage accounting to make my business better.
For sure, yeah. I think the big thing too with accounting, it's there's levels to it, so where I'm at with my business now, the conversations I have and the topics that we cover are so different. It's not just like a profit and loss report. like being able to read the numbers, there's like a level of education you need to have that I'm only learning, that I'm like, whoa, I'm like a baby compared to you, you know, when I speak to someone who's genuinely educated at my level, you know. So I think it's probably a bit of a misconception around accountants that they're quite numbers driven people, but they also are quite creative. So like when you look to do something with your business, if you've got an accountant that is creative but also innovative as well, so as legislation changes, they're like, okay, we can innovate the way you do things now. For me, when I've been looking for an accountant, that's the thing I love the most, you know. So like if I talk to someone about numbers and I can see that they're excited and they're like, it's like me with real estate, you know. So you talk to someone and they go, actually, did you know this legislation just changed? Or now your business is at this level, we can tweak this, or we can turn it into a company, and then you can do this, and then you can wash your money through this way, or like, and you speak to someone, you're like, wow, like, you know, that's like, it's like really exciting, you know, which is like when I was speaking to some of the boys, you're a little bit like that, you know, you get excited about it, you know,
I do.
So, which is cool. So how did the transition happen from like, you know, you've got the business, you know, with the chocolates. How did that transition happen from that to getting your full degree as an accountant to, how did that happen?
Oh, I was already an accountant.
Oh, well,
So I graduated. Okay. So
cool.
Had my accounting degree, majored in accounting finance. Cool. Then I was working full time. So while I was doing this, I was still working full time, building my client base as an accountant.
Wow, that's cool.
So I had the two simultaneously. Would not recommend doing. 100% recommend just focusing on the one thing, because seriously, you're honestly not going to. It's basically doing two things at 50%. So I would work pretty well 8 days is not ideal, but it felt like it.
Feels like that
7
sometimes.
days.
How many days are in the week?
You're like, how's it still Wednesday?
What day is it?
So 7 days a week pretty much was what I was doing and operating on for a long, long time. So fortunately, where the chocolate shop was located, it was literally just downstairs from the accounting practice. So I would get a lot of cardio in. So I'm running up and downstairs.
You want some chocolates, or you want to sort your numbers out? All right.
And then, you know, you're like, oh, your client's here. So you're running back upstairs. So you're managing the two. I think when you're starting out, especially as a taxation accountant, your focal point, you're definitely more on the individual front. So you're dealing a lot with individuals more so than the businesses. So as I started to, you know, get more of my skill set, understand more of what I enjoyed, I started to realize way more. I liked the finance element. I actually went and got my diploma in financial planning, because I was like, look, I think maybe I want to go down that path. Decided against it because obtaining your Australian Financial Services license is a whole thing. And with that mindset of like, do one thing and do one thing so fucking well. Sorry about my language. I'm doing that so well that you're able to then multiply from that one thing. So I think that's where I landed on, but just having the skill set around it made it a lot clearer on how I was going to be able to pull that, especially with the businesses. So financial planning is a huge element for businesses, as you mentioned. There's a whole ecosystem that comes. It's like you start off as a sole trader, and then you might go up to a company, and then all of a sudden you've got a company with a trust, and then you've got, and so your ecosystem builds out. And with that build out, all of a sudden you've got the you're like, okay, what does that mean for my future? Where's my wealth creation coming from? And that all comes into it. And so I started to really focus my time on that, because that was what I loved doing.
It's cool. No, I totally agree with that. Like, real estate was my third business. So, and when I was building the first two companies, they did okay. I didn't lose money, which is good. But I learned a lot of lessons. But a couple of those businesses, you know, I was running them at the same time together, and it just, it's like we have this saying that in real estate you need to specialize in a patch, you know. So if you're speaking to someone who sells, you know, the same property day in, day out, like if you're speaking to an accountant that's an investment, you know, has an investment property portfolio or something like that, and they're doing it day in, day out, that person's the best person to give you advice, right?
100%.
Because they're so good and they can charge more for it. So I was doing two things okay rather than being an expert at something. So, you know, another way to look at it is like a doctor. You know, when you become a doctor, you become a specialist, that's when you make bank, you know, because you're a specialist and you can charge more because, you know. Anyway, but I totally relate to that. And, you know, there's so many people I speak to that go through that journey. You know, they're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And they get this shiny ball syndrome. And then they dial in and go one thing. They're like, why was I just not doing this the whole time?
And it is. It's like you're an excitable puppy, and you you see something and you're like, I want to go chase that ball, and then there's another ball that's thrown, and then you want to go chase that ball, and so it becomes this whole Like, and then you go, why am I never making money? I feel like I'm spending all this money. Where's all my money going? It's like, because you keep chasing the damn ball. Like, you don't need a brand new ball every time. Just fix the one that you've got and make it better.
Yeah,
so I think that is definitely I reckon every single entrepreneur that you'll ever talk to has probably done 2 to 3, maybe even 4 ventures before even nailing the one that they're in.
Yeah. And I think this is what I was saying to someone the other day, that he's a bit of a mentor of mine, and I'm speaking to him about some things that some problems I'm trying to solve in my own life and business and stuff. And the problems are always going to be problems. It doesn't matter what your problems are, there's always problems. So you just need to get used to having problems. So it doesn't matter. Like, the problem could be, I'm not making enough money. And then now you make enough money, you've got this problem, this other problem that you're like, I didn't see this one coming. So problems are always problems. It's your attitude and your approach to them that has to change. And that's the thing that you need to remind yourself, hey, because there's levels to this thing.
100%. Yeah. I think we tend to think that once we make X amount of money, that problem is going to go. Yeah. Like you said, this is a new problem that you got to solve. And that's where I think a lot of people get scared of scaling.
Yeah.
Because I have had a lot of conversations with business owners where they're like, no, I'm comfortable now. Like, I don't want to go any further because that's just going to create another problem.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you still got the same problems now. Like, you just... Yeah. If you don't fix the problems now, yes, scaling is probably not the best idea. But it's funny because it has a very negative association to it, that growth.
Yeah, it's funny. I speak to agents, right? I was speaking to this agent the other day that works in my team, and he was saying, like, he's only just got to 20 properties right now selling a year. And I was like, okay, so you've got problems at 20 properties. Do you want to have problems selling 20 properties, or do you want to have problems selling 140? And he's like, I'd much rather sell 140, eh? I'm like, yeah, so just pick your problems, man. Like, seriously. So, but I think the thing is with scaling, what I've taught myself is you can scale with risk, but there needs to be a nest egg there where it's like a slow, old man type style investing, and the stuff that you can afford to lose, go ham on that. So that's what I've learned over the years. As I've gotten older, I'm like, okay, this is my long-term stuff. I'm going to make sure that this is just going to grow over 20, 30 years, and that's where I'm going to put it. This is my savings. Make sure my kids are looked after. This is my kids' little pot, rah. Everything else, all right, let's go.
And I completely agree, but this is also, I guess, falls on to really understanding what your numbers are doing. Like, you can't scale and grow if you don't have a buffer.
Yeah,
like,
so
if you're like, I'm going to do all of this, and then you've literally got $10,000 in the account, and that's not going to see you through. It's not going to see you through all the things that you want to do. And so I think it's understanding exactly what your numbers are doing and how you can leverage from that. Yeah. Because you like you said, you got your, it's like investing in shares, right? You invest in shares and you're in it for the long haul. Like, I think it's any investment. Long term is always most likely going to be a much, what do you call it? Your return on investment is going to be a lot higher. Yeah. Obviously, if you're a trader, it's different. You might.
Yeah.
But that it's slow and steady wins the race. Yeah. That kind of mentality. But that's your fixed. That's where if anything falls to shit, you still got this. Yeah. Like you're not gonna. Yeah. Yeah. Lose it all.
Yeah. So true. Hey, like I think the big thing is too, like what I use with my accountant as well now. Like he has a genuine care about where my business is going as well, but he always checks me. Like, he has really honest conversations with me. Like, I'll say to him, made this much money this month. He'll be like, no, you didn't. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he'll be like, check this out. And I'm like, holy, like, we had a meeting about a year ago, and he showed me like this breakdown, like, hey, this is where you're leaking money. This is your actual P&L. You can't just go on to zero and just bump a report. I need to look at a few things for you. This is your actual P&L, blah, 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 blah. And then once you combine that with his knowledge of the real estate industry as well. So he's like, how many listings have you got coming in? How much you got under contract? Blah, 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 blah. Like, all of that, when they finally piece that together, you'll find that the accountants, I think, are the most underpaid people in any industry. So, like, he sends me a bill. I'm like, mate, I don't care what you charge me. You're worth like 10 times what you charge me. And it's so true, and it's not just tax time. It's not just end of financial year. It's planning, So I've only learned that as I've earned more money, So like, it's the same in our trade, Like, I think the poor man pays twice, So like, we go up against listing presentations with other agents, and they charge 2%. I'm like, okay, so how many properties have they sold in your area? They go, they've only sold 2. I'm like, and I've sold 60. So you're gonna get for $2,500, you're gonna risk an asset worth $750,000. Are you serious? Same with accountants, you know, like I want them to charge me more because I'm like, why are you charging me more? Do you not believe in yourself, or don't you think like there's a bit of a mentality there?
It is, and I think that the hardest thing that we do, and I've spoken to a few other accountants within my industry, taxation work. So one of the biggest things that we do struggle with is time-based type pricing. So we kind of see it by the hour rather than by what we actually can do and our expertise. So that is a shift that a lot of accountants have had to make, but a lot of us are still stuck in charging out for time rather than for value. Yeah, 100%. Because our expertise, like, we don't stop studying. Yeah. Like, I don't just, get my degree, walk away, I'm done. Legislative change is constant. Like, it's not non-stop. And for me to be better and for my clients to achieve better results, I need to be better. Yeah. And then the way I see it is like, if I can make my business incredible, then I can do the same for my clients. Yeah, totally. So I always go in the lens with how can I be better so that I can then translate that to my clients. 100%. So like with the clients that you're dealing with and whatnot, like what are like some common mistakes that you see like day in, day out? Obviously the level that they're at is going to change, but let's say you're turning over below 1 million. Let's say you're doing that. What's some common mistakes that the majority of people are making? I think biggest mistakes is always thinking, and common mistakes is thinking that they have more to play with than they do. So spending more money than what's coming in. So cash flow being a major thing. And then I guess there's also the piece of them not wanting to accept that what you're telling them is in fact true. So it's like, you're telling them, hey, you shouldn't be spending X amount because you don't have that coming in. Oh, no, but I've got a really, really big project coming up and that big project is going to see me through. And the biggest cause, I think, of what makes them go under is tax debt. Because they go, well, I'm going to pay the tax man last. But it's the worst thing and the worst mindset to kind of have, because they're the ones that are going to come after you first. Yeah. And they're getting so strict now. So we see a lot of companies that end up, burying their head in the sand, and then you try and contact them, and then they end up going through liquidation processes, and you just don't want to end up in that place. Yeah. So you don't want that smoke, eh? No. So cash flow, spending more than they have, especially at that level, I think, I look at it and I'm like, 6 figures is great, but 6 figures, what does that mean if you don't have any profit for it? So you can go ahead and go, 6 figure, I'm a 7-figure business owner, but if you don't have any profits to show for it, then you're not. So you think it's more not how much you're making, more what you're keeping? Yeah, 100%. You think that's most people have a diluted vision of their business? Yeah, revenue doesn't equal profit. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. So you just want to make sure. That's a good one, eh? Write that one down. I like that, yeah. It's so true though. It is. Especially in our industry, like our industry is a bit like, imagine if accountants every month were going, this is how much GCI or this is how much commission I wrote or whatever. Like, it's just like, oh my God, like shut up sort of thing. Real estate's a bit like that as well, And I go through this sometimes with other people, and I'm like, they're like, I wrote 100 grand a year. Or I wrote 100 grand this month. I'm like, yeah, great. So how much is your car payment? They're like, this much. I'm like, you've got a assistant, don't you? How much is that person? All right, and you pay for a car for them too. Yeah, how much is this? And then you look at your bank account, you're like, I made like $1,500 this month. Yeah, and you don't think about it. Like a lot of people will be like, oh, but I pulled up my P&L from zero, and like it's telling me that I've made $50,000. Yeah. You're like, okay, like why isn't it in my account? Yeah. Oh, you went out and bought a car. Yeah. So there's the car loan, and then the insurance, which you've got on insurance premium funding. So that's also dripping out of so that's showing in the liabilities, not in your overall P&L. And so it's like, well, cash management becomes the most important element, because if you want to move your business forward and you've got no cash to do that, well then it's, you're in a rock. What is a rock in a hard place? You're not going to get out. So, what would be your advice to someone then? Like when you're speaking to them, like, hey guys, like these are 3 things we need to dissect with your business. What would you do with someone who was coming in with those? I would be first off seeing 100% where everything was going, and then unfortunately, because I know a lot of people don't want to do this, is cutting a lot of those unnecessary expenses. So if things are dripping out, like there's the leaks in the business, patching those up and making sure that we can fix stuff that doesn't really make a big difference in the overall operation of the business. So, it's like your own personal budget. You're not ever going to be able to, if I was to relate it to real estate and I want to go out and buy $1 million house or more, I will need to have a budget that's set aside to be able to afford that.
Yeah.
I can't,
So true.
you know, it's the same kind of concept that you would have to put in. So you'd have to have
Yeah.
your budget set.
Yeah.
You would dissect a little bit more their cash flow, what's coming in and out of their business. So you go
Yeah.
through that with a bit of a fine tooth comb. And then after that, you're basically going, right, you've got to cut this, do that. Sometimes we've told people that they might need to sell an asset.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it might be that, you know, if things are really bad, sell a car.
Yeah.
You know, I've had,
definitely do that.
yeah. So I've had one client. He had about 300,000 thereabouts in tax debt.
That's I just can't believe that.
Yeah.
It just seems like pay your tax, man. Like
Yeah,
that's like
yeah.
what
It,
the
it
hell?
got it got really bad.
Yeah.
And he came from another accountant, and he was just stressed out of his mind. He was just like, I never even wanted to get this bad, but it just was like one thing after another. And by the time he caught up with all his GSTs, it would just kind of snowball, right?
Holy.
So he ended up selling his house, and he was just like, you know, screw it. I'll sell the house, pay all this off, get
Yeah.
myself ahead.
Yeah.
And then now he's in a better position than he was if
Yeah.
he hadn't done that. If he
Yeah.
hadn't done that, and it was like the sunken cost fallacy, right?
Yeah.
You go, but I've worked so hard to have this, and I've, you know, I've done everything I can to keep this. Sometimes it's better to just cut your losses, get yourself ahead, like get yourself back to like neutral, so then
Yeah.
you can get back ahead.
Yeah.
And so
Yep.
he's in a much better financial situation
Yeah.
now. Like he will sit with me every quarter
Yeah.
and go and watch me pay this.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'll watch him pay
Yeah.
from, because he's like, I need to do it right this instant.
Yeah,
and he's
so
got
so.
the thing, he's got the cash flow now to pay for it, because he's no longer spending his tax money.
Yeah. I just don't. I just can't believe that. Like when you say that, I'm just like, is there actually people out there that do that?
100%.
You just like,
Yeah.
I just can't imagine. That would just stress me out. Like, especially, I'm speechless. Seriously, like I
Yeah.
cannot believe people have that levels of tax debt. Like, I imagine that would probably be small. Like there would be some people who've got millions and don't really have the revenue to cover it. You know.
Yeah.
So, I was reading a book about it's Tax Secrets of the Rich or something. It was from Kerry Packer's old accountant or something.
Okay.
And he actually wrote it in a way that, like, if you were really quite wealthy, you would get benefit. But if you were just like you and I or whatever, you would get a lot of benefit as well. Just like small little subtleties, like these are common mistakes, blah, 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 blah. And the things he wrote, it was just mind-blowing, the mistakes people were making. And it actually made me feel pretty good. I was like, I'm not that bad. Yeah, not like I'm amazing, but I'm just like, I used to think of myself from accounting, I feel like I'm a bit of a dummy. Like it's something I'm really trying to focus on with my accountant because what I figured out a few years ago is like, I don't need to be an accountant, but I need to have a level of knowledge to be able to effectively communicate with them, because they're going to give me advice, and I need to know whether that matches up with my overall goals, because they can only give you advice based off what you want to achieve, you know. So that was a real barrier for me. So I'm just like, okay, I've got to double down on this. So yeah, anyway.
No, but that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's actually something that I really am passionate about, and something that I really try to translate and educate to clients, and basically moving into that space of education, because I think that you can build a better relationship with your accountant and build a better business if you're able to translate, you know, because you understand the knowledge, like everything that's kind of going on at a certain level, to then be able to have those conversations and know that you're both moving in the same direction. Because I can give you advice, but that advice might mean shit to you if it doesn't actually align with your overall. So it's important to have that and be able to have those conversations with your accountant. If you don't mind me asking, how frequently are you meeting up with them?
So my actual accountant, I meet with him once a week. Once a quarter.
Yep.
And then I have like it's his partner. I won't call her like assistant. It's his partner. I'm pretty sure she's a partner in the business. But I'll meet with her once a month, and then I've got another guy who's like my mentor who works with the same accountant and specialises in real estate business. I sort of talk to him every fortnight with things. But they've really got set and forget things with me that I can't stuff up. So rather than me jumping in trying to make things, I just pay them more and let them do it. Because I'm like, I'm paying you more so it cannot stuff up. Because if I do it and reconcile something wrong, all right, it's just like so I've almost gotten to a point where we're just meeting and they're saying, do this, do this, do that. I'm like, yep, great, no problems. Because it makes sense to me because I understand it now. Whereas I don't really like being involved too much in it, because that's not that's not the power of the business. The power of the business for me is the revenue.
Yeah.
So I need to focus on the revenue stream. You sort that.
Yeah.
I wanted my tax paid instantly. As soon as it comes in, bosh, pay it. Like, don't wait, like I want that power. I don't want that smoke,
You don't want that stress of a $300,000.
Yeah, I don't want any of that, I'm like, these are my targets in my business. You tell me, I go, look, this is how much I want to earn this year, revenue. This is what I want to invest in, blah, 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 blah. And they just do the numbers of that. So it's just set and forget payments. It's just like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
One report every month, go through it. But now we're at a level where we've increased our revenue and I have to increase my education now because they're like, no, this is where you're at now. This is if this is your goal, this is what you need to change.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell? Like that makes what are you talking about? So now I'm trying to read legislation, trying to educate myself to try and get to that next level. So the question I was going to ask you, because I ran into this about 2 years ago where I sort of outgrew the professionals I was working with, not in a disrespectful way, it's just in a knowledge way. Like I was working with an accountant who was a really lovely guy and I had a really good relationship, and it was just, I could just tell he wasn't like I was. Like I wanted to grow like rapidly, and he didn't really resonate with that. He's like, you don't have to worry about this. I'm like, oh mate, no, don't worry about that sort of attitude.
Yes, yeah.
Same with my broker. So like my broker, which actually they used to clash all the time. I don't know if you clash with brokers. They're like, you need to show more profit and loss. You're like, no, you need to, or whatever.
Oh yeah. There's always a back and forth there with clients. Yeah, yep.
So do you ever have like, and you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but do you ever have a client where you're like, where their business is heading, maybe I'm not the right person to mentor them through this tax. Maybe there's someone who's more a specialist in that sort of avenue, or have you ran into that before?
I haven't ran into that.
Or vice versa?
It's actually like probably, there's people that I definitely am looking at their business and going, I don't know if I'm going to be the right accountant for you because I want you to achieve more and you don't want to achieve more.
Yeah, that's true.
And so it's the opposite. It's that I'm looking at businesses where I'm like, I feel like it's like, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And so that is more, I'm like, I want to align myself with business owners who have a desire and a goal, and, they want to shoot, what is it? Shoot for the stars or land on the cloud. I don't know. But like essentially,
shoot for the stars, aim on the cloud.
Yeah, I don't know. An analogy for everything, but they want to go hard. And so I think because I come from that same place, is like we all hit different levels in our business, as you know, that require a different level of support. Yeah. And so I'm constantly looking at, and I've had similar realizations just within my own support system of like, obviously I don't need an accountant because I am one, but. You look to, maybe it's mentors, and you go, well, I actually think, I'm not at this level anymore. Like I need someone to support me on this level because they've done that. So when you're looking at potentially scaling from 7 to 8 figures, what does that look like? And how are you going to get there? And what does your ecosystem look like as well? Yeah. So that's where I'm at. Yeah. So I'm personally at the 7 to 8 figures mark. Yeah. So I would like to have people that are in a similar situation. Yeah. Whereas I do see a lot on the flip. It's hard. Yeah, it is hard.
It's one of those things that like I think, I don't know what it's like in your industry, but with scalability, like most people in my industry anyway, they're like, I want to scale. You're like, you're not working hard enough. Yeah. 100%. Like you want to scale, you're better off. What I did is I'm like, well, I can sit here and plan my way through this thing, or I can just go hard and learn my lessons. That was the 2 avenues. I'm like, I can sit here and put a plan in place for this and put a procedure, or I can just go out and list heaps of houses. That was the way I saw it. Because like what I found with most people in business, they sit there with a plan with no execution. So they're like, I plan this, I plan that. You're like, no. Go, in my industry anyway, I'm like, you need to go out to generate enough revenue, learn how to lose money and to manage it, and then learn your lesson. Because once you have that scar, you can manage, you have that with you for life. So for me, if I earn heaps of money, it doesn't matter how much money I earn, I'm never ever going to go buy a Range Rover, because I was just like, that's not me. I'm like, don't spend money on stuff that doesn't make me more money. Sure, if I was going to lease it or whatever, but
I have the same mentality. Yeah. And I think that's where I get really frustrated is like, I'm like, why are you going out and buying a car when you're literally making a loss? You're not making any money. Why are you doing this? Yeah. It's not just any car, it's like a Ram.
Yeah, I know.
And you're like, I cannot support this. Yeah. Like I'll tell you flat out, maybe people don't appreciate that kind of bluntness, but I think that you're right. Like I'm someone who I learn by doing.
Yeah, me too.
So I think that's where maybe I've been unconventional as an accountant.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of like accountants follow a lot of framework systems. It's all very much like by the book.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where a lot, you've obviously found a gem of an accountant who's been able to facilitate not just the compliance side, but the advisory side, which is where I'm leaning to, and that's where I'm building my team out for, to be able to provide that level of service. But a lot of accountants, we're kind of stuck in a method of like, well, this is what compliance says, and this is what's going to be best, and you're kind of going in more with a tax minimization strategy rather than what's going to be beneficial for the goals of your business.
Yeah.
Sometimes paying the tax is the better decision to grow the business at the speed that you want to grow it. So
this is the thing I have with people. I'm like, if you've got a banger of a tax bill, that's good. It means you've made a shitload of money.
Yeah.
If you spent it, that's not good.
No.
But if you've got a huge tax bill, it means you have something. It's working. So like, because I read all these books and all that sort of stuff, and they'll go, this is how I pay zero tax and all this crap. Like, I'm sure there's people out there doing that. But like, where we are at, you want to have a pretty decent tax bill, that's okay.
Yeah.
And the way the tax system works, if you pay a bit more tax and your business starts not to go, you can always pay, bring it forward, So like if you start to lose money, there's heaps of systems that the taxation system will work with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I never understood that, where people are like, oh mate, I know. There's always like this thing, like there's some wizard tax person who's like, this is how you pay zero tax. It makes no sense.
It's not if you pay tax, it's when.
Yeah, seriously.
It's a tax deferral. When are you going to pay that tax?
Yeah.
Eventually down the line, if you're making decent money, you will pay the tax. Whether it's this year, next year, 10 years time, it will be paid. So obviously when you build out, you've got your companies, your trusts, you've got your holding companies, all of the systems and that. Yeah. But that's not going to cater to every single person. If you're talking about someone who's generating under $1 million in revenue a year, having that whole build out is probably not, it's not something that's necessary. And maybe I shoot myself in the foot because I could probably sell a lot more structures, but I am always, my thing is that it's 100% I want you to succeed. Yeah. So I don't want you paying for something and creating more of a mess if that's not going to help you succeed. Yeah. You can always add. Yeah. You don't have to build it out the whole thing until you know 100% where you're going. And so I think if you've got the core structure right, the rest will come. But a lot of people, and not to get into like legislative discussion and politics, but there is a bit of we're always advocating for a tax reform, right? Everyone just wants something to change, that there is a little bit more clarity and a little less on the small business owners that wear a lot. But a lot of small business owners that are sole traders change structure to company purely for the tax savings. Yeah. But they don't really understand what happens in a company. The company has so many elements to it that setting up that company might not be the best fit. Mm-hmm. But if you're going in purely for tax minimization reasons, then you're not doing it for the right reasons. So true. And so that's what we do see a lot of, because those are the ones that end up not doing well. Yeah. Because they end up going, they start pulling money from the company. You're not supposed to. It's not your company. It's a separate entity. But if they changed it, maybe increased the bracket and said, it's no longer 190,000 is the top tier. You change it to 400,000. Yeah. You would see a lot of businesses just stay as sole trader. Yeah. Because a lot of people don't want to reach that. Yeah. And that's cool. That's absolutely cool. But if they just looked at that and said, hey, these people will stay in a sole trader. It will be cheaper, easier. They'll continue to spend money. They'll continue to do everything within the economy because they're taxed less. Yeah. They'll still stimulate the economy. Yeah. And there'd be less stuff that they'd have to crack down on in terms of the compliance and ASIC legislation, because you don't want to get on ASIC's bad side. No. I mean, ATO is one thing, but ASIC is
I don't want any of it. That's why I'm like, whatever, comply with this, pay this, whatever. I don't want any of it. Nah, it's just not worth it.
It's not. And that's where I think I do see a lot of people changing structure for the wrong reasons. Yeah. I think if you're going to change structure, go in with the thought that you want to grow.
I think the big thing with accountants as well, just from in my experience, the thing I like about my accountant is just no bullshit. You know, I'm just like, don't bullshit me around, man. I don't care what structure I have to put in or whatever, but just give me a good reason why I have to do this, right? So like, this is what they say to me anyway. I'm like the typical guy where I'm like always on podcasts, I'm always on books, I'm always like just trying to consume information and stuff. But the thing is, when you're talking about accounting, or it's personal to your situation, so you can't listen to a podcast or read a book and go, oh, this is how this guy does it. This is why, because you're totally, and this is where my accountant's good. He's like, mate, just buy it in this structure. Don't do it in that structure. That's not part. When you said to me, this is your goal, that's not part of your. I'm like, yeah, but then I can do this. And right, it's like, you're just overcomplicating it. So just buy it exactly like this. And that's what I really like about him. That's what I like about being a real estate agent as well. I'm a bit of a no bullshit guy. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you things that to get your listing or whatever. I'll just be brutally honest. And if it means I don't get your business, or, you know, whatever, at least I can sleep at night, you know. So, and that's the sense I get from you,
Yes.
where you're a little bit no bullshit, where you're just like, guys, like, this is what you should be doing from what you've told me. You can do it that way for sure, but I'm going to charge you a shitload more.
Yeah.
So it's like,
pretty much like I don't want to, you know, beat around the bush, straight down the line. I don't like being bullshitted to, so I'm not going to bullshit to someone else. So that's just pretty much the crux of it. And so that, you know, and like I said, I want you to make money. I want your business to succeed. So I'm going to help you do that. But if you don't like what I have to say about it, well, it's okay if you want to go to someone else. That's honest. Like, there's no hard feelings, because if you believe that that's the best move and the best choice for your business, then I'll support that.
Yeah, for sure. So what about like away from work? Obviously we've spoken about a lot about work and whatnot, but there's, you know, in my life anyway, like business is like one component of my life. Like what do you do outside of work? Like family, all that sort of stuff?
So I have obviously lots of family time. My whole, if I'm not working, I'm with family. So I got husband and one daughter. Cool. She's amazing. Awesome. That's about it. I don't really do much more. I do a lot of business. If you were to ask me what my hobbies are, I enjoy the fitness side of things. I like, you know,
going to the gym
and all of that. But
what gym do you go
to? Snap.
Oh, yeah, in Winelli?
No, in Casuarina. Yeah.
Cool. Nice.
So actually bought myself a reformer for home because I like the Pilates.
What's that?
You know, Pilates.
Oh, I know Pilates, but what's a reformer?
A reformer is like a Pilates bed that, you know, has the springs.
Oh, those things that go.
Yeah, those things that go like that, yeah.
I've actually seen a funny video of someone got folded on one of those, I think it's one of those things. It's like they move on like this little,
So I bought myself one of those.
Oh, cool,
because I just found it really difficult with having the kid and work, just trying to get out. So I got really into running, and then Pilates was a great one. So I bought a reformer.
Cool.
And then, so that's pretty much it. But I do a lot of my free time is pretty much spent on business and family.
Yeah, it's hard because I'm in that position where I'm trying to really, because I want to be there with my kids. I've got twin boys and my partner, so I really want to be there for my kids and my partner as well. My partner's involved in the business. She actually does a lot of the accounting, so she's a lot better at this stuff. I found it like as you go on with your business, it's really, I think there's so much emphasis around working hard, which you need to work hard for sure, but you also need to have, you need to be smart about how you run your business and your business not run you. And I feel like I got to a point like that where I was like, my business is sort of running me right now. Like, hold up, you know, I sort of want to spend time with my kids. That's why I asked that, because I like to speak to people who maybe are running fast. Yeah. Just to see what they implement. Like for me, I do mornings. So like mornings are with my family. So, you know, up until about 9:30, I just spend with them, going to the gym, my time, reading, podcasts, things like that. Once 9:30 hits, I'll just put on the gas until I go to sleep pretty much. So I don't know, do you have like a similar sort of thing? Or?
So because I was working pretty well 7 days a week when I was doing the two, and then Eleni came into the picture and I was like, you know, I really need to sort something out, right?
How'd that go?
Oh, it wasn't easy. I was still doing, like, it was peak tax season. I had set up my computer and everything in the living room because it was easier for me to like that. So I'm sitting there doing like tax returns, replying to shit, like all that with a child on me.
Oh, that's hectic.
Like, so I'm breastfeeding, doing this on phone calls, and I made a promise to myself in that, like, there was one particular situation that broke, like, just, you're already an emotional mess, like you've just gone through.
Mate, pregnancy and all that, that's crazy. I can't even imagine.
It was a really difficult time, and I remember at that moment going, I don't ever want to do this again. If I have a second child, I am out of office. This is not
Yeah.
happening. So
Yeah.
I don't work weekends unless I absolutely have to.
Yeah.
So my boundary is Saturday, Sundays for my family.
Yeah.
We're doing all of that. And I don't work Fridays. Fridays are with my daughter.
Okay, cool.
So I'll work Monday to Thursday.
Yeah.
Just normal hours because I just find that works best for me. Like, I feel like I'm still working out where I work best. You know, some people have more optimal times, like in the morning to afternoon.
Yeah.
But yeah, as long as I got Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Yeah,
I'm pretty good. So
yeah.
it was just the fact that, trying to run a business and manage a team, and then, you're a new mum and you're pulling your hair out as well.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea how you would have done that. Like, I think being the man's different because like I haven't just destroyed my body. So at least I've got my hormones and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
But like literally birthing a child and still running a business.
Yeah.
I have no idea how the hell you did that.
No, it was not. It was like,
It was a lot.
I'm proud of myself. Like I got through it and I didn't, didn't completely fall apart.
Yeah.
But they, I think, I don't know about you, but when people would say to me, when you have kids, it would be different. Like the way that you think is different. And I was like, I was never a female who felt that my purpose in life was to have children. So I actually never thought I was going to have children. Not that I didn't want them, but it was just, something that I was like, if I had them, I was like, if I have them, I have them, cool. If I don't, that's cool too. And I found that with becoming a parent, it wasn't so much that my purpose shifted to her, where I was like, everything in my life is now for her. It just meant that I was like, I wasted so much fucking time before she came into my life.
So true.
I am not wasting another minute.
Yeah.
Because if this means that I can accelerate what I can do, and then by the time, let's say I'm 40, I'm taking my foot off the pedal, everything is running the way that I want it to run. You're still doing, you're still a CEO, you're still working at an executive level, you're still making core decisions. But if you've got everything else on the groundwork running, then you have way more time to spend with your family and doing because they need you more. They need you a lot when they're babies, sure. But then as they grow up, they reflect what you do. So true, if my daughter sees me just sitting down watching TV every day, all day, what's her behavior going to be?
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to be an example to her, and I want to show her what's possible, and that she can work her ass off, and she can have all this stuff too. Yeah. Because even though what I'm building is going to be for her and for her future kids and grandkids and all that, she's still going to work. She's going to still work. Yeah. She's not. She's not going to get anything that's just like a given handout. Obviously, she'll have more security than what But
yeah, I think kids they learn a lot by just looking too. They just watch and they just learn, So this is the thing I like about myself and my partner, and that's when I first started this company, she had to be part of it. It was more of a relationship decision because I'm not like a marriage guy, I'm like, I'm going to propose to you on the thing or the beach or whatever. I've had my time of thinking like that, and I just don't want to be like that. I would rather, if there's a person that they're my person, I'm going to commit to them for life. I'm going to commit to them on every aspect. Yeah. Whether or not they have a ring or a piece of paper is not really going to change, Yeah. So money, business, houses, investments, everything. Your half, everything. Yeah. Regardless of what you do. If you hang out at home and do nothing, that's all good. Yeah, you're the half of everything. So. And with Hannah, which I haven't even noticed that this is happening till we had kids, is that she's so involved in the business now. She's for me, she plugs all the holes. So when something's going wrong and something's leaking, she just jumps in and fixes it. It's the hardest role because it's you're not educated in a certain thing and then you have to jump in there and fix it because I'm too busy doing this. It is the hardest role. But the thing that's starting to happen now is the kids see Hannah doing work. The kids see me doing work. So all they will grow up with now, and this is what I want them to grow up with, is mum and dad go out, work their ass off, and there's family time for sure, but they work together, work their butts off. Not dad goes to work and mum sits at home and does nothing. Mum gets after it as well, along with doing all the other stuff that she does, which she does way more than me. So, that's a thing I've never really thought about until they've gotten a little bit older. Their kids will be we'll whip them up brekkie in the morning, and then Hannah's putting their clothes on, and we're all working together as a team, and then we get them off to daycare. Hannah drops them off to daycare, then she's into work, and blah, 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 blah. And then she's off to daycare, getting them ready, and then I'm coming home. It's just they're around this all the time, and it's just what I'm starting to notice, especially as they get a little bit older, are that they really clue on with things. So there'll be things like they know the boys, they all know all the boys' names now. It's cool. They'll be like, "Where's Arjun, Daddy?" And I'll be like, "What the hell? Where's Steiner, Daddy?" Or like, but it's cool. But like they growing up with like, now they're seeing, you know, those boys as idols. Like it's just like, it's really like blown my mind. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's who you know, it's who you surround yourself with. And that was one thing with like my dad, you know, so LC Accountants was my dad's.
Yeah.
So I bought it off Dad.
Okay.
So I've been working in the practice for 14 years.
Wow.
And pretty well Dad, you know, found us, started it up, you know, built the brand.
And did the chocolate business.
Yeah.
Holy.
So Dad and I have worked together quite, you know, where's a lot of people have gone, how do you work with your dad? I'm like, you know, I think he's just lucky because I'm lucky because he's a tolerable man. He knows how to deal with. I've got 2 sisters, so there's 4 women that he's dealing with, and has just learnt how to like manage.
That's a lot, eh? He doesn't get any choice in his life.
No.
Like,
So he's a patient, you know, really patient man, and I'm really grateful because he's been able to show me a lot, and teach me a lot. So, but when the opportunity came about, I was like, nah, Dad, like. I remember when I said, I was like, I'm ready to buy the business whenever you're ready to sell it. I was like, I know that you can go sell it to the market, that's fine. But I'm just letting you know that whether I buy it or not, I'm going to start my own. So,
that's such a cool conversation. I'd love for my kid to say that to me.
An hour later, he comes into my office and he's like, sorry, and he told me the price, and I was like,
10% above market.
And he's like, I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, cool, I'm done. Here you go.
Yeah, see ya.
An hour later. I was expecting this to be like a year, like get myself in order. So before I knew it, I had that financial year taken over. But I always watched my dad work.
Yeah.
And I watched him work really, really hard to support. I watched my mum work really, really hard to support us. It was, you know, I remember sitting as a kid in his office, answering the phone, not very professionally, might I add, but I'd answer the phone and be like, Dad, it's for you.
I like that. I'd like to call my accountant and have that. That's like cool. Yeah.
But like, you know, that was just the way that it was always family. Like Dad, it was never a hard thing. He would pick us up from school if, you know, Mum wasn't able to, and would sit in the office. It was never a big thing. And I actually really appreciated it because I feel like I saw a lot. I saw ups, I saw downs, I saw, you know, they didn't hide things in the way of like, you know, yes, they do it as you do with your kids. You try to protect them as much as possible, but they also showed us the reality of what it was.
Yeah, the vulnerability.
That's exactly it. I'm not even trying to say the word again. Tongue tied.
I talk a lot.
But the biggest thing I think was that I didn't want to continue to work. Like my dad still works 6 days a week. Because he's still doing like workshops at the chocolate factory. Like that's just how he is. That's just what's embedded in him. But I knew that that's not what I wanted. And it was funny because when I first started, I was like, Dad, I'll open on a Saturday. I'll do returns on a Saturday. Like I will see clients. And he goes, I just cut Saturdays. Do not do Saturdays. Like I beg of you, because it's the hardest thing that you will never get your life back. So he was able to guide me in where he went wrong. So it was great. But I want my daughter to see that. I want her to be like, you know, she gets on her computer and she'll be typing and she'll be like, you know, business. She calls it business. It's really cute. And so I'm like, it's a competition because my husband is a dentist. So he has his own dental practice. So we're both very business oriented.
That's pretty handy having your partner be an accountant.
He
sorted that pretty well, didn't he? He's like, well, I got my own practice. So like, you know.
So, you know, we've been through it. And that means like, you know, so I've got an understanding of what it takes to run a like hospitality business. I know what it takes to run a like medical practice. And so, you know, and then obviously the services. So I've got a bit of a, you know, a thing, but we do actually keep a lot of things separately, funnily enough. So I've got my own and he's got all his stuff, even though things are still 50-50, but because so it's a competition now. It's like what is our daughter going to become? I was like, an accountant's better than a dentist. I don't know why you would choose to do it.
I know, dentist is a tough trade, I reckon. Like, just hanging out people's mouths every day.
It is, and like he'll be like, I can only charge this much, and like I can't get. I was like, well, I'm sorry, like because there's a lot of costs. There's a lot of materials. Like the equipment is so expensive. Like
you got to choose your vehicle, eh?
Yeah, that's it. Like just to set it up, it was close to $500,000.
Yeah, I know.
That's insane.
So this is someone the other day. So like I've got this business opportunity, right? So my partner's a radiographer by trade, and her sister is a doctor, right? She wants to get into something different now. But I'm like, you should be a radiologist. And we'll start a practice. Because then we've got the radiographer who takes the pictures, and then we've got the radiologist who reads the scans. I'm like, this is perfect, you know? But then you look into how much the machines cost, how much the staff, how much, I'm like, oh, you're better off being a real estate agent. Like, you look at all of it, and like, I think it's just so important, hey, like, which I think a lot of people, including myself, didn't think before I started a business, is choose the right vehicle.
Yeah.
You know, like, a lot of people are like, I want to be a builder. I'm like, well, that's awesome. Because builders drive around in nice 200 series and stuff. I'm like, guarantee you, look at that balance sheet, man. There's a lot of costs, you know.
Yeah.
So like, and I'm sure you could attest to that. But there was a one thing before we finish up. There was one topic that I wanted to cover with you. Okay, so you ran into a part in your business which I want to talk about. Mm-hmm. You got to a point where you're like, this isn't working. I'm going to make a massive change. Like, tell me a little bit about that.
So, I started to realize. So, you know, I've had the practice now this is coming on to my 4th year. And the first year I didn't really want to change too much. So I wanted to just get the feelers and see what was going on and, you know, don't disrupt the peace. Second year I had my daughter. So there was a lot of reality changes that shifted, brutal. Right? You know, it was a very hard time. So this last year and a half, there's been a lot of shifts. Yeah. And in that shift, I realized that the way it was working, it was kind of built on as a sole practitioner. So my dad was the key driver. Yeah. So if dad went on holidays, nothing else happened. Yeah. So you're losing revenue, you're losing all of that. And so I kind of came into it and I was like, if I feel capped in my personal growth, as in career-wise, what are my staff feeling? Because if I'm feeling capped and I'm the owner, then clearly my staff might feel the same. So there's only so much that I'm going to be able to achieve in this structure as a sole practitioner. Yeah. And this is where I just decided, like, the way that things were working, it just wasn't it. You know, even because we grew. So we were growing rapidly. I went from like pretty well within 2 years, doubling the profits and the revenue. Yeah, wow. All right. And then the client base grew like hectic. And I was like, we cannot keep going at this rate because we're all drowning. Like, we're drowning with work. And I'm glad I've got like an amazing team, but there's only so much that they can do. Seriously. And I've got a very big, like, your mental health comes first. Yeah. I will never ask you to work overtime. Like, it's literally your hours are your hours. So I was like, how do I continue that? And keep them growing and keep that happening in revenue without us burning out, you know? So I ended up doing a complete reorganizational structure, change, just like literally this isn't working. Yeah. And I went through what we needed and I've started to build it from ground up. And I think what the biggest trigger was, we went on holiday for 6 weeks for the first time in tax season. So obviously I had tax season technically off when I had my daughter 2 years ago. But it wasn't really off. I was still there. I was still very much available and my dad was there. This year, both dad and I were away in Europe for 6 weeks. And I thought everything was okay. And then I got back and I realized that it was like a shit show. And I was getting like feedback from one staff and another staff. And I was like, and this is me being brutally honest. Like I looked inwards and I was like, what did I fuck up as a leader? How did I fuck up as a leader? And how can I make this better? Because this is on me. Yeah, it is on anyone else but me. Totally. So I started, you know, revising everything. I was like, okay, we don't have, you know, adequate policies and procedures. Even if I got a new person, how am I training them? Yeah. What's the expectation? And so I went right back to the basics of, you know, let's build this out so that this is a well-oiled machine to get to that next point. Yeah. Because you can't expect to go from 7 to 8 figures without refining that. Even 0 to 6, 6 to 7, if you don't have those systems, and you can kind of go from 6 to 7 as a sole practitioner, you can, but there's a lot of work, and that's where a lot of people will burn out and go, this isn't worth it. Hitting that money, hitting that target is not worth it because I've lost my sanity. There's a way to do it and keep your sanity, but you have to build out your organizational structure first.
Well, I think the service level too, like if you try and run it by yourself, the service level drops and then the revenue will drop and then,
And that was one big thing for me. I was like, you know, I quality over quantity. And I was like, if I'm not delivering, then I've failed. Yeah. And so everything I do, I look inwards and I go, okay, if I'm not doing this, then how can I expect everyone else to do this?
Yeah.
So that was a massive piece for me, and we've almost got it.
Yeah.
Only looking now for one more person.
Yeah.
But we're pretty much already there.
Yeah.
Huge software change,
So
changing from like paper-based to cloud.
Yeah.
So there's more flexibility. I've actually got 3 people working remote now.
Yeah. So
Which we weren't able to do before. So we definitely, the restructure has been critical in the growth, and sure, we might have lost a bit of revenue here and there. I'm not worried though, because I know ultimately that I needed to do this in order for me to go to that next piece.
So true. Like, I'm in that in my, like, and the thing is like, you redesign the systems and then you get here and you're like, holy, these systems aren't working anymore.
Yeah.
So then you have to tweak it again and to get to the next, like, that's what I've noticed with mine.
Yeah.
Like and like, that gets back to our first point, right? The problems are always the problems.
Yeah, that's it.
So stop getting so worried about it and just fix the problem,
Just fix the problem, that's right.
It's when you don't have problems, you're like, oh, hang on. What is it? There's a problem happening here, but I just don't know what it is. Like, that's the scary part.
It is. And I think one of the bigger things that you do need to take on board as owners, you are the problem a lot of the times. So if you're not willing to make the change, then your business isn't going to grow and evolve.
Yeah.
So as long, you need to be real with yourself. You do. You have to have that brutal honesty, and maybe that's why, because I can be an asshole to myself, but that's the only way that I'm able to move the piece. Is if I'm not true with what I'm saying, then I'm not going to be able to move the piece that I need to. And how am I going to be the best leader if I'm not leading well?
Yeah, I think the big one too is like reactions too. Like, I found that when there's people's behaviour, and I'm dealing with this at the moment, there's people's behaviour that you don't, maybe it's disrespectful or you don't understand it, or a lot of the time if you tweak things with yourself, that will change.
Yeah.
Like, rather than trying to tell them, stop doing this, if you just tweak your behaviour and you don't even talk about it, they will change. Like, that can happen sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, I was just listening to a podcast yesterday that's called You Are the Problem. By like this guy who's like, yeah, anyway, I won't go into it. But he was talking about that, and he was talking about reacting to situations and looking at yourself. Like, how are you going to communicate to someone when they, like, that's I think that, honestly, I reckon that's the biggest thing when scaling, hey, because it's so easy to, oh, this person does this or this person does, no, bro. You're the problem. Don't try and put this on anyone else. You chose to be here, you chose this vehicle, so you fix it.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's one of the biggest keys and one of the biggest pieces in scaling. It's understanding that you are your own limitation. Yeah. So if you're not willing to change and to do the work that's required in order to fix whatever the problem is, then you're never going to get to the it's so true. I can sit there on the calculator and type in all of the numbers that I want. I sold this amount, I could make 20 million. Unless there's an actual way of executing that, and unless I'm doing all the other steps first and right, I'm never going to achieve that goal.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, so true. We've chatted for a long time, eh?
Yeah. Sorry, got a bit on tangent there.
No, honestly, like, I was looking so forward to chatting to you because I think accounting, if you're a business owner out there, I think it is the most important part. Obviously, revenue and sales is really important, but it's almost like the concrete slab of your business. If you haven't got a good slab, you're never going to be able to build a cool house or a good house. So I really appreciate you coming on and taking time out of your day. It sounds like you're really busy with being a mom and business owner, so thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Jacob.
No, that's all good. And we might have a chat maybe in a couple of years, see how we're both going.
Yeah, that'd be good. Awesome.
Cheers.
See ya.